Hello and welcome to the Birchal Podcast. My name is Emily. I'm your host, and today I'm joined by Holly Bailey, who is the founder of Play Like a Girl Australia, which is an organisation which is dedicated to getting more girls involved in sport. Thanks so much for coming.
My absolute pleasure. Great to be here. Thank you.
I'm really excited to talk to you today. I've done so much research around this because I do think it is such an issue that, I think people talk about tackling it and it just doesn't really happen. I just would love to hear how you actually got into it in the first place.
I completely agree with you. It is a common conversation, especially if you're involved in sport. I've been playing sport for as long as I can remember. I grew up in a really sporty family, predominantly with my dad and brother, so a bit of a boys' world, and I learned to be competitive from them and get involved in every sport that I could get my hands on. So growing up in that environment, it kind of becomes the norm. But as I grew up and got a little bit older and understood a little bit more about the industry and sport itself, there is definitely a lot of conversations around how we keep girls more involved for a longer period of time, because not only is it good for them from a mental health and wellbeing perspective, but it's good for the economy from a leadership perspective. We know that girls in sport make really good leaders, so we want to keep them involved. And I had some moments, I guess, along the way where I realised we were still having those conversations that we'd been having for a long time now, and I kind of started to get a little bit annoyed about it and thought, all right, well, we've been having these conversations for a while now. I'm ready to get in and do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing. I even had a conversation with one of my girlfriends recently. It was around their AFLW. And she was like, it's so frustrating. They don't get the funding they need and no one's supporting it. And I was like, yeah, do you go to many of the matches? And she said, well, no, I'm quite busy. And I was like, well, do you pay a membership? She said, well, no, also I'm quite busy. Do you think that the issue is not just, men not getting involved, it's us as women as well?
Absolutely. Some of the easiest things you can do is turn on the television or go to a game or have a conversation about it. All of those things are tangible, helpful things we can do to advance women in sport.
Absolutely. But I understand that your program essentially starts from, early ages, early stages. How does that impact women, I guess in the future generation?
Our programs start for girls starting, who are 15 and up. So we've got our cohort or our community. We've got a national community, women and girls across every sporting code that you can think of between the age of 15. And I think our most mature person in our community is 66. So it's really broad.
Wow.
People come in for a variety of different reasons. If they're our younger demographic, and I'll say our 15 to 25, they've probably got an athletic aspiration of some description and want to be really good in their sport and are looking for ways to be able to do that. So our programs are really focused on helping them with the off-field development. And when I say that, I mean things around developing a mindset that's going to help them to perform at their best. And we want them to have a think about what does winning look like for them? What is success for them, whether that's on field, off field, in a leadership capacity, whatever it looks like. But we want them to find that purpose in why they're playing, because we think that will help with longevity. Then we want to talk to them about leadership and what that actually means.
Yeah.
I was in leadership roles as a young person in netball. That was my first sporting love. And because I'd grown up in a really sporty family and a win at all costs kind of attitude of a family, that didn't always help me in a leadership capacity. And I learned later in my sporting life what it actually meant to lead a group of people, and wish I'd got those lessons sooner. So that's a really important element of the program, as is needing to learn to lead other people really well and motivate and inspire them. And then that grit and empowerment, which is sort of the last module in our main program. We think that that's the get out there and play like a girl module. And we talk about bias, and we talk about being a strong role model, and we talk about sharing your story, so that after they've come through a program with us, they get out there and they are just so empowered to lead, which is the name of the program. That's what we want them to feel, whichever domain they feel like leading in.
I think you're doing a pretty good job at being a leader now. Obviously, you're really heading up a space where a lot of people haven't really entered into in that leadership position. Are there other women that you target to become ambassadors and role models? Because I think that that's often part of the issue, is there aren't a lot of role models in sport for girls growing up.
Definitely. I am always at the girls in our community. Tell me what you're doing out there. Tell me your wins. I want to celebrate you. I want to share your stories. I get to meet the most amazing girls and women across this country who are already immersed in sport, whether they're achieving and kicking goals on field, but so many of them are also on the committee or taking on a leadership role, or maybe they want to be on a board or whatever it might be. There are some unbelievable stories, and I am the first person to want to sing their name from the rooftops. However, there are a lot of women that might feel like we were talking about earlier, that might not feel their story is important enough, or, that they're not successful enough yet. But I think they sometimes just need that nudge to say, you've got an amazing story, let's share it. And in terms of mentors and ambassadors, we have just had some of the country's best leaders come along and share their stories, and often they will offer their time to do that for us because they love what we're doing. We really want to empower women and girls in sport and leadership, and there are some amazing, we've had Dawn Fraser and Peggy O'Neill and Sonia Hood and amazing women who are at the top of their game come along and offer their time because they've seen some stuff in their time and they've overcome some real barriers themselves, and they are just some of the best conversations, and we get so many gold nuggets from that. So the first year that we were running online programs, we had someone come along every single week for that whole year. So we've got this ridiculous content library. And so now what we've done is open up sort of a bit more of a membership subscription so anyone can get access to that. And we'll have podcasts as well because we don't want to keep these stories secret. We need them to be out there and other people immersing in them.
Absolutely. So what's your revenue model now, and how do you keep funding coming in so that you can keep the program going?
Yeah, majority of our commercial model is through corporate partnerships. It was probably not my intention. We'd definitely started with a subscription model. In hindsight, we would not be sitting here having this conversation if that was the model I went with first up. So I'd built a pilot program. We've been running the programs face-to-face for a few years as a bit of a side hustle, and I knew that was not going to be sustainable, nor was I going to have a commercial business that way. So I spent some time building a product that I could grow and scale that is now a virtual offering. And when I had put that out, my accountant saw the pilot program. He'd known me for some time now, and he was already looking after some AFLW players and some cricketers with their sort of financial plans around contracts and stuff. So he was involved in sport. He was a big supporter of mine and saw the pilot program. And he picked up the phone and called me. He said, "Oh, I love this pilot program. I'd love to sponsor the first 50 girls to do it."
Wow.
I still have goosebumps talking about it. And what he doesn't know is that I had the number 50 written on my mirror for months as my dream number, thinking if I could get 50 girls through this program, that would be my dream. And so to receive that call, I remember I was in the car with my brother driving up to catch up with my family, and I nearly drove off the road. It was an unbelievable moment. So what that meant was that I could then go out to some schools and to some sporting clubs and say, we've got a pilot program with some fully funded scholarships. Do you have some people that might be interested? So we filled it really fast.
Yeah, right.
Almost immediately. So I got to run it the first time ever with 50 people in it, which now I know is way too many. I really value being able to connect with people and get to know them. So that was probably too many. But that first year of running it that way, I learned a lot of lessons. There were a lot of people that were interested in something like this. And it wasn't just team sports. It was a whole range of different sports, nor was it just players. It was coaches, administrators, a whole range of different things. So our, fortune to have that commercial model almost demonstrated to me or given to us in the first instance has what we've stuck with for the last 4 years, where we have got corporate partners, or we've had local government want to offer scholarships to girls and women in their local communities. So we were really lucky in that first year where we had quite a few local government, local councils come on board and offer it. And then at the back of that first year of running online programs, we got our first kind of major partner, I would say. And we knew that was going to be a model that worked.
That's incredible. I felt a bit weirdly emotional then when you were talking about it. So I do think it makes such a difference, and it can give that opportunity that might not necessarily be there to so many of these girls coming up in sport. I was thinking a little bit earlier when you said that, the cohorts kind of start from age of 15. There's quite a big statistic around girls stopping sport when they get to 13 years of age, and there's a significant drop-off. Why do you think that is?
Variety of reasons. I think there are things like some clubs, some team sports that have been around for a really long time can be really intimidating for a young person to want to enter into or to stick around. They might not have thought about what the experience is like for a young person or a young girl coming into that. So that can be a barrier. There are certainly things around body image at that age where if the uniform isn't suitable or you don't feel comfortable in it, you might be less likely to want to show up and play. They might still have white uniforms and you have your period on a Saturday, and that might deter them. So it could be small things like that. It could be, you know, a cliquey community where you don't feel like you belong or you're part of it, or maybe the club hasn't thought about how to make it more inclusive yet. There are so many reasons. At that time, there are so many social things coming up. So your friends might have other commitments, or your family might need you to do things, or study becomes really important. So there are so many things that can deter you from playing sport. Sometimes the things that are best for us can drop down the list pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So those factors, I think, there's so much research and information around what those factors are. I start to have the same feeling that I had before Play Like a Girl was in existence, going, we understand the factors, or we've got a really good grasp on them. We need to start doing something to provide solutions for those.
For sure. And I think when you talk about the fact that these sports, they're so ingrained in this masculine energy, and, you know, there's a lot of clubs that don't have facilities for females. You go to football clubs and they only have change rooms for the men. Have you considered how Play Like a Girl might be able to change that kind of stigma?
There are definitely clubs where you go and there are no change rooms for the females. I've played in football clubs where you arrive and you'll be in the room getting changed, and there'll be urinals there, and they can be pretty rough, or sometimes they don't even exist at all. You might be getting changed in the car park or in the car or something like that. In Victoria, there's definitely a whole lot of work being done around fair access policy to ensure that there are female facilities, and not just female, that all people are sort of are welcome at sporting clubs. So there's a lot of work being done. So that's a great thing to see. It will take time, of course, but there's a lot of work being done there. From a Play Like a Girl perspective, definitely, I think that the more that we grow and the more cash flow that we have, that'll allow us to invest more in community and be sponsors of clubs that we'd really like to be part of. It's certainly part of the dream. I've got some financial targets to hit before we can get there.
I bet. So looking forward, obviously you've got to start kind of raising funds so that you can scale and make it that bigger impact. How do you go about doing that?
For now, we are still, corporate partnerships is still the main game for us. It takes longer in some scenarios, but they're bigger chunks, I guess, and allow us to do more. We've now got a subscription model offering, so we're just kind of experimenting with that at the moment. What's the right price point, and what offering can we provide inside of that makes it valuable enough for people to want to purchase? We'll look at raising at some point, but for now it's organic growth.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about funding as well, obviously there's some target addressable markets in Australia where girls, they stopping sport, not because they might have social commitments or they've got bad body image or something. They just might not have access to the right equipment. They can't afford to join a club. It might be too expensive. How are those communities looked at? Like, how do you get in touch with them?
How do we get in touch with those communities is we offer a scholarship program. That's our impact. So Play Like a Girl, majority of the people who come through our programs come through on fully funded scholarships. So there are definitely a lot of people that if we only had the option for people to purchase to come into our programs, we wouldn't be running programs with as many people as we are. There are a lot of people with financial barriers to coming in. I grew up playing in sporting environments myself, and it's very unlikely that the outlay of funding would have gone into a leadership program versus, you know, having a coach or having uniforms or footies and things like that. So I understand that it's challenging. So our impact is the scholarship program we get to offer, and the only way we get to extend that, build more programs, to have a broader offering for some of the younger cohort is that Corporate Australia commits and continues to invest more over these next 10 years in the lead up to the Brisbane Olympics.
Absolutely. That'd be so incredible, I think, so that, you know, girls growing up can kind of see their role models in that space as well. Obviously, there's a huge aim at these female role models. Are a lot of male sporting icons, would you say, are they getting involved in amplifying the voice of Play Like a Girl?
In some sports, yes. Some sports there are some fantastic allies. In some sports, they're very quiet.
Could you give me a little inkling as to which ones are quiet and which ones really want to help?
Sure. I think at the moment cricket are doing a great job. There's cricket on the television at the minute, and you can see all the advertising for the upcoming Ashes in January, which is really exciting. I love seeing when the men's sport is on that the women's sport is thought of and that there's advertising around so that viewership and audience can get a glimpse. So I think they're doing a really good job. I think AFL, there's been some issues lately where, perhaps the men's players aren't behaving in a way that is supportive of the women and in the way that they should. So there are definitely some issues there. So some sports do it well, some have got a fair bit of work to do.
Where do you think we start with addressing issues like that? I mean, obviously it's been an issue for a long time that you see men behaving badly, this boys will be boys kind of rhetoric. Where do we begin to change that narrative and say it's not okay, we can't have these representatives in the sporting realm? Because I imagine if women in sport were behaving in the same manner, this would absolutely not fly and they'd be crucified. Where do you start?
Yeah, we definitely have to call it out when we see it. There are small examples of it often, and then there are the bigger, more obvious ones that certainly need to be reprimanded that we see in the media and that have come up recently. I definitely think that sometimes the sporting clubs that have been around for a while simply don't stop to consider what the experience of a female is like coming into that environment, or how their behaviour might affect a female who's seeing it, observing it, are surrounded by it. So I think that we need to continue having these conversations in rooms with men and women, not just the girls getting together to talk about it by ourselves, because I'm really conscious of that. Our community is females and we talk about issues like this. We have a lot of women and girls who are in various roles in various sports who are facing challenges, and it's hard. It's hard hearing it. I've experienced it too. It's hard. I get it. But we need to make sure that we are sitting at tables with men and women, including them, explaining the factual, what's actually happening out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I could absolutely see Play Like a Girl being really instrumental in going into even men's sporting clubs to discuss those kinds of issues. Is that something that you think about regularly?
Yeah, definitely. This came up last night. We had a program.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's quite an obvious thing. We can't do this ourselves, and we don't want to. It's not, equality isn't for the girls to get done. It's about all of us coming together and making sure that we're both on the same page about that. So absolutely. We've played with names around what we might think about calling it, because Play Like a Girl itself is a bit of a play on an old sledge that we now think is a really powerful term. And
Absolutely.
I know what it means to me, but it means something different to everyone. And I can often see on the first introduction if it's something that they think they're empowered by or not. It raises certainly some interesting responses. So if I think about running a men's program, or even offering them the same kind of self-discovery that we give to our girls, I think that would be amazing. Sometimes I think it might be something like be a man, or I don't know, some kind of old school sledge that used to be given to the blokes that we can flip and make a really empowering statement for them. But I think that, we can't do it alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's got a huge amount of potential though, for sure.
Yeah.
So when you look back at the journey, where you've come from and what you've achieved to date, what would be your proudest moment? What's a story that sticks out to you and makes you realise how important what you're doing is?
I get a lot of satisfaction from hearing stories from girls who are breaking through barriers that they never thought that they could. But the standout, I could think of many, but there's one standout story from really, really early on in the journey which actually cemented for me that this is the thing that I want to spend my time doing now. And it was back through COVID. I was going to the park most days with a tennis ball. I was still playing footy at this point. So I would go down to the local oval and kick a tennis ball against the brick wall just to make sure I was keeping up with my skills and stuff.
Right.
And one day there was another girl at the wall that I always use, and she kind of had a Hawks jumper on, so I knew she was a decent athlete of some description. She was throwing her netball against the wall, and our balls kind of crossed paths and we started chatting. She was a netballer and we knew some of the same people. And so through COVID, every now and then we'd go down and either have a kick of the footy or throw the netball around. And she'd never played footy before, but when I watched her, I thought she should definitely be playing footy. She could kick it 50 metres. She was a gun and she was tall and athletic. And I thought, okay, when footy season comes back after COVID, I'll see if I can get her to come down. And so when footy season came back, I showed the new coach some videos of her and I kicking the footy around and he said, absolutely get her down here.
Brilliant.
So she came down, she played pretty much every game that first season and then got the opportunity to train on with an AFLW club. And when I heard the news of her getting that opportunity, I felt like I could have just cried my eyes out because I guess there was a part of me that thought that feeling would come through my own sport. And there are times when it really has that just elation that you've achieved something that maybe you didn't think you could or just sheer disbelief that you actually did it. I felt that same feeling observing her get that opportunity and thinking, oh my God, I had something to do with that. And I feel like I'd visualize that moment, but I didn't know how exactly it would unfold, but I could feel it. And so for me, that meant I didn't need to be playing sport at that level or committing as much time on field myself. I felt like my business then became my love more than me playing sport. I still love playing sport, but I didn't need to be playing as much. So that was a real moment of going, I had something to do with that and that just meant everything to me. So now we get stories all the time. There's stories in different ways. There were some ladies at a football netball club sort of out in a rural location and they were part of the same club, but one was part of the seniors and one was part of the juniors and they'd never met before. But they happened to be doing our program at the same time. So we connected them and now they've applied for a heap of different grants together and are working really, really well. And they recently just got a $70,000 grant to redo their surfaces on the netball courts because now they're running an operation that is cohesive and together. So just the unraveling of things that continue to happen is so exciting. I can think of many, many moments like that where we get to see the snowball effect of what we do. That's my dream. That's what, if we can be the springboard for people to take leadership opportunities, to create impact in their clubs, we're doing our job.
This has just made me think of something, of a book that I read. I don't know if you've read Lean In.
Of course.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Great. And it just made me think of, obviously, women have historically not helped each other to get into more leadership roles because they're worried that there aren't enough positions at the top because there haven't been. And so they don't, lend that hand and pull each other up. But it feels like by empowering them to do this in a sporting sense, that you can say, there are positions at the top. You can help somebody and still help yourself at the same time. Is when you were saying all this, I'm like, oh, you're such a girl's girl, so great. Like, I love that because for me, seeing one of my friends achieve something gives me so much joy. And I know that for a lot of women, it isn't like that, which is such a shame and it's so disappointing. Whereas perhaps that's why men might have succeeded so well in business and gotten to the top, because you do see them say, oh, come for a drink, mate, or come for a golf and we can chat it out over golf. That's something I want to get into, is golf.
Yeah.
So I can have a chat, do some deals at the same time, and that's it. And I think that that's where women have historically fallen down, is that we don't have that sporting community and that sporting head to kind of, work as a team. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I 100% do. And what growing up, I would, if a group of our friends would kind of go out together, I would just be like so amped that they're my girls or like they're with me. I've always been so excited about just having a really good group of girlfriends. And that's, I don't know, there's something about, I don't know if it's a sense of belonging or excitement. I don't know what it is, but I've always been really proud of my friends and proud of my girl group. And so that now I feel like that's kind of my job to do that. But you're right. I've experienced where maybe that's not always the case, but now in our community, in our cohort, if that's not your attitude, you will not. You won't be welcome in our community, because we are here to uplift the girls. And I think that kind of culture that that the men's sport or otherwise have created has been great for them, because they go, oh, I'll just bring my mate in. This would be awesome.
Yeah.
And we haven't really been raised like that, but we can be. And so now we were talking about this just this week. I can't remember where it was, but we were talking about that. If you get yourself in there, bring the girls in. Now it's time to get on the phone and go, I know someone great for this position. Bring her in.
Yeah.
And if we can start to create that, I think that then we create these links where the girls aren't missing out on opportunities. They're brought into the room by their friends and by people who back them.
Yeah, absolutely. I just really hope that there's that flow-on effect so that we can keep growing as a community, because I think there is strength in numbers at the end of the day.
Totally.
Like, this isn't a solo sport. I mean, I grew up playing tennis, so but that at the same time, you know, you might be playing solo, but you're still part of a team and you want everybody to win so that you can all win together.
So that is what our community does. It brings together women who are all right across this country, especially those who are in a rural community, that there's no other women at their rugby club, and women, you know, this woman might be there for the presidency role for the first time and has no network. So we open up this network of women from all over the country who are facing really similar challenges. They get to come and just ask questions or help or share, and that, you know, that kind of relief of going, oh, I'm not the only one who's struggling with this or battling with this. And sometimes I think just the space to meet someone and share and talk is a great thing in itself. I say all the time, we've got so many tools and resources and amazing women that you can come and speak to, but sometimes just the time to reflect and have a conversation and open yourself up a little bit is life-changing in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all forget about this all too often as well. And I think it makes people more well-rounded people if they're given the opportunity to play sport outside of work as well. Why are we all just spending all of our time at work? Or if you're hanging out with a friend, most thing you're doing is walking. How do you spread the word and get more brand awareness around Play Like a Girl?
Oh, if I had the answer to that question, that's exactly where we're at right now. So we know we've got a great product. We are getting feedback from the people coming through our program that are just having awesome experiences. And so the aim of the game for us now is, how do we get that name out there, and how do we have more sporting clubs, individuals, organisations know that we exist? So sitting here with you having a great conversation is one of those things. But now we'll look to write some more articles and make sure that there's thought leadership coming out of the experiences that we're having, so that I really want to cement our place as a leader in the women's sports industry. I don't know that category has really been owned or really opened up yet, especially in this country, but I think there's a position there for us, and I see us taking it.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think that it's very niche at the end of the day, isn't it? And it's crazy to think that this position hasn't been filled yet. It's pretty wild to me. And it's interesting, I think, in the last couple of years that women's sport is getting more prominence, and you look at the Matildas and the impact that they've had. What do you think that means for young women seeing, you know, their idols on this world stage, essentially? How does that impact them?
I think for the first time, for people who watch that World Cup, you'll never forget it. That was equivalent of Kathy Freeman in terms of iconic moments in this country for women's sport. For girls who get to watch that for the first time, it might occur to them, that's actually a career pathway for me, which previously they may not have ever considered that they could do that for their job. So getting to see these athletes on stage at the top of their game, getting paid to do so is pretty amazing in itself. I know that the numbers for participation off the back of that World Cup have been through the roof. The challenge now is, do we have enough grounds to be able to actually support that? So great, the growth, also the challenge arises, but they're the kind of problems we really want to run into.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also you're running into this problem of equal pay. And at the end of the day, it's hard for, you know, a sport such as basketball, for example, to justify the paychecks for women when people aren't watching it as much. Where do you think we really start in terms of encouraging people to watch the sports that need the funding?
It's a little bit of chicken and egg is what I'm hearing in this conversation. Basketball is a really good example where the WNBL has just been purchased by private ownership. So they've got an investment organisation that have come in and have now purchased a really big chunk of that. So what that means is outside investment comes into the sport. They'll be able to invest in rights deals and more programs and resources to ensure that that product is a really great one and that the eyeballs are there. So I think the investment has to come first. I don't think sport can do it on its own. It needs people on the outside, corporate Australia, to get involved and elevate it so that then it's a product that so many people want to watch.
Absolutely. That's a really, really great point. So in terms of traction to date, how many people have you brought through the program and how many are you looking to help in, say, the next 12 months, 24 months?
Yeah, we've had around 2,000 people go through the program now.
Huge.
Up until this point. And then now it's a little bit different. So we'll continue to build on those numbers. I've got some really ambitious targets over the next sort of 5 to 10 years, I would say. Our addressable market is enormous in this country alone, let alone New Zealand and outside of that. So we want to have a membership database of, 100,000 people minimum, which we think is very possible. So we've got some real targets around making sure that the product is valuable enough and we can continue to build the program that we've got and other offerings as well.
So where's the next frontier then? So once you've conquered Australia, which is actually a really good market to test your product in, because if it does well here, it's likely to do well in other markets. Where's the next place you want to target?
Yeah, you're right. And I really want to understand and know our customer and our audience here before we start to go for investment or look outside of this market. I really want to nail Australia and then start to broaden. So New Zealand's definitely next. I have lots of Kiwis in my life and I really love them. I've got a couple of advisors who are Kiwis and a few of the organisations we work with too are over there as well. That will definitely be next and then we'll see after that.
So exciting.
It is, very.
So if you can look at, say, the dream, 5 years' time, where is the company? Where do you see yourself as a leader of the company as well?
Yeah, I see myself stepping back from some of the delivery of the programs. At the moment, I do all of the delivery and we're running a lot of programs at the moment. So I would bring in some other fantastic facilitators, hopefully some girls that have been involved in sport too and are equally as passionate about it. So they would be doing a lot more of the delivery. I'd really like to be sharing the message and sharing the goodness and the stories of what we get to do. I think that I'm the right person to lead that. There'll certainly be other people that can come in and run this company better than I can. But I'd really like to be out there making sure that more and more people know about us. So leading it from being the face of it and then bringing in a whole lot of ambassadors that can come and do that on an even larger scale.
Absolutely. And how big is your close team at the moment?
Yeah, there's 5 of us at the moment.
Okay. So you're very hands-on.
Very hands-on, exactly.
That's the tricky bit at the beginning when you're a founder and you've got to get your hands dirty, and then trying to scale sustainably is so difficult, and you've got to grow with a team that is like-minded and that they support the mission at the end of the day. So does that scare you?
It doesn't scare me. It's certainly challenging for sure. We've had over this last year or two where the team has grown and then we've found the right people and sometimes found not the right people and that stuff was harder. So I'm not scared by it. I just feel like I'm ready for it and we're moving too slow most of the time. Other people in my team are more probably risk adverse than I am. So they're saying, let's get this handled first before we sort of get too big. But I'm ready and eager and waiting for that next moment, I guess, and next stage.
It's really, really exciting. So if people are hearing your story now and they want to get involved, they want to help you grow and scale, how can they help?
We definitely are wanting to hear from corporate Australia around how they can get involved in women's sport, and whether that's from getting investment into sport, for sure, we can definitely open up some doors that way, or if it's about investing in future female talent through the lens of sport, that is absolutely our bread and butter. So Play Like a Girl Australia is where you can find us across all platforms and websites. So I would really welcome that call if you're ready to have some skin in the game.
Awesome. And if people want to get involved from, potentially applying for a scholarship, how do they go about that?
Same place, Play Like a Girl Australia /scholarship. There are always scholarships available. We're already promoting for next year now.
Brilliant. And how many are available for next year?
For our February program, there are probably, I don't know the exact number. There's a few left, but we're running 2 cohorts in Feb. So numbers are dwindling for spaces left. So if you're keen, get involved now.
That's so exciting. Thank you so much for coming to chat to me, Holly. It's been so lovely to hear what you're looking to achieve and how many people you've already helped. It's absolutely huge, and I think it's a really, really important space to be in right now. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see what the next 12 months holds.
Thank you for having me.